Did you know that there are literally thousands of study techniques? Just Google how to study and you will be completely overwhelmed. Some are just plain absurd too. Like, for example, there's this one guy who claims that by building calculus problems out of blocks and blowing them up on Minecraft, he actually learns his material to study for his exams. Yeah, right. But there are a lot of techniques out there that are legitimate and worth taking a look at. Being college students, we all know that finding an effective study method can be difficult, but when you find the right one, your understanding and retention of the material can greatly increase, which will increase your grades also. And we all know that having a good GPA could mean the difference between a good job and no job. Study techniques is probably one of the worst topics for me also, because mine are kind of all over the place. I call it organized procrastination, and trust me, it fits. I sit at both ends of the study technique spectrum simultaneously. At one end, I'm insanely organized with tab books, note cards, and a color-coded planner, but at the same time, I do everything, and I mean absolutely everything, the day it is due. I just can't bring myself to turn it in beforehand. It drives me crazy. So I chose this subject hoping to gain a little knowledge myself. First, with thousands of suggestions for studying on the internet, I'm going to break it down into two of the most effective techniques I could find that could work for anyone. While there isn't a single technique that covers every learning scenario, these two should help in many of them. The first study technique I'm going to discuss is spaced repetition. According to Princeton University, spaced repetition is a learning technique where you incrementally increase the amount of time between review sessions after the material is learned. This technique is considered by many the best way to learn large amounts of information quickly. Materials such as vocabulary words can be stored and recalled very effectively using this method. One method for using this technique is the Leitner system. The method uses 5 stages and flashcards with the information you need to learn on them. It requires you to either advance a card you got correct to the next stage for less review, or move a card you got wrong back to a previous stage for more aggressive review. This technique is more useful for learning less complicated material. Students and teachers alike have agreed that the more complex the information is, the less likely this technique is to be effective. This is also probably one of the easiest study techniques to set up, and probably one of the cheapest also, making it good for us broke college students. The only thing you really need is paper or flashcards to write on, and you are good to go. The next study technique I'm going to discuss is practice. I know in this class we know the practice technique. It is practicing something over and over and over again until you get it right. Exactly like how Professor Kinkle wants us to practice these speeches over and over again until we get them right. Many of you will probably know this technique as the practice makes perfect technique. Students at MIT did research and found that this is one of the most effective study techniques. Practicing is also a repetitive technique that helps you implant the information you need to learn securely in your brain. While this method isn't appropriate for all learning, it is appropriate for anything that can be practiced, such as acting, or being an athlete, being a chef, being a carpenter, anything that you need to learn by doing. I want to cover a technique I know we have all engaged in, but I found it said to be the least effective. This technique is cramming or pulling an all-nighter. Cramming is discouraged by educators because of the lack of long-term retention of the material being studied. While you may remember it in short term or long enough to take your test, the information will most likely disappear in very little time. Procrastination is a contributing factor to this technique, something that I am all too familiar with. Putting off work or studying until the last minute usually leads to the need to cram for important tests and quizzes. So, in conclusion, there isn't a one-size-fits-all study technique, and you are the only one who can decide what will work for you. Good luck on finals!